Thank you to Sakuraco for sponsoring today's video. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today, I kind of want to do another more like chill, real-time kind of talking video, but I wanted to experiment a little bit with some brushes. So here I actually have a little sketch or a doodle because I downloaded some new brushes. Technically, this is not what we are going to be using for today. I think you can kind of tell I want to use like a watercolor brush, and even though this brush actually works pretty well and has like kind of more of like a natural-ish texture to it, I really like it, but the application to use the brush is a little bit backwards for me in terms of how I like to work with watercolors and how I like to like layer up colors and just all that in general. So I'll give you like kind of like a quick demonstration, and I'll link everything in the description that I talk about today. But if you're interested in this brush set, you can check this out. It comes with like, I believe the free one comes with a paper sample, which is this kind of test canvas, alongside with the, let me show you guys, a grainy pencil, which I actually really like. It has a nice texture. I really like the richness and the darkness from it. It has two watercolor brushes, one that's super diluted and another one that's a rough wash, which I find easier to use. The super diluted one is the one that I kind of struggle with. Brief example, I like building up my values slowly. So oftentimes I would start light and then build up to get gradually darker and darker for my values if I'm working like especially traditionally. So let me show you what I find difficult about this. I'm making a new layer. And you can kind of see we have this like watercolor paper texture that's on a multiply layer. This is kind of already pre-set up for you. So if you're interested on like how you want to apply textures and stuff, you can definitely download the free set and try this out. For me, if I'm using the rough wash, this one applies pretty easy, and I actually really like this one. It's quite cool, and it's a little bit more predictable for myself. So this is kind of what it looks like. You can layer up your colors, kind of like this. But when we use the super diluted version, let me show you how this reacts. So if I go lightly, so this is light pressure, I kind of get like a solid fill in a sense. It's still like transparent, but it's kind of like more of a flat fill. Let me show you guys again. But then as I press harder, you see like how it kind of blurs out and kind of pushes out the edges a little bit more, and the center becomes like very transparent, or in this case white, because of the white of the paper. So I'm pretty sure this brush is meant to simulate you adding more water, hence why it's like super diluted. So the water would eventually pool in the center and then push your colors toward the edges. But for me, in my brain, I feel like the lighter I press, it should be light, and the harder I press should be dark. So for me, it's kind of like in the reverse, which I find it a little bit hard for me to grasp how to work with these watercolor brushes. But if you kind of like the textures and stuff, you could probably do a workaround. It's still quite fun, and I feel like a lot of the texture is actually quite fairly authentic to actual like traditional watercolor. I might fiddle around with that set in the future. Let's take a look at another example. So this is from a different set that I think I bought. So this is the starter pack, I believe, from this artist that I will link in the description, as well as put their name on the screen because I don't know how to say their username. And they have a few watercolor brushes, markers, pencils, I think a pen liner, and even like just texture for like your canvas or your paper. So I have a paper texture for the background for this, which I made it kind of more of a warmer manila color. And then all of this is done with watercolor. So I'm going to show you the time lapse really quick because I think it's the best way to kind of show. Oops, let's go past this. I'm just reusing like a sketch from a different watercolor video. But I think you can tell that when I'm like building up the watercolor layers here, I am going from light to dark. For me, it's a little bit more intuitive for my process. And I do like the texture of the brush itself. I think it's kind of fun. So I think we are going to be using this one today. You can kind of see what it looks like. I'll also turn off the texture. So this is just from the brush itself. And we'll select our lightest watercolor wash, which is the one I've been using for this sketch of Sotheby. So if I press hard, kind of get our nice little blob. But if I want to fade out the edge, I can actually press lighter. And as long as I don't lift up my pencil, I can always go back and reactivate these areas. And it kind of softens out the edges a lot, which I liked having that control. And then obviously it has the same kind of like layering technique where the transparent layers kind of give that same feeling. But if you take your time and like feather out the edges by pressing a lot lighter, you can kind of mix things back into one another, but still have like a little bit of that transparency. I think once we start doing like an actual piece, it'll probably make more sense, but this brush makes the process of doing digital watercolor a little bit easier for myself. So I think I did do another video where I kind of did a watercolor attempt, but I would like to do one that's more of like a full piece. I only did like the first portion of like Sotheby here, but I think it was a good test. So let's go ahead and start with a new canvas. We are going to be drawing a Genshin Impact character today. Let's start off kind of small so we can get actually a finished drawing for today. So for my background, I am going to change it to white right away, make a new layer, set this to multiply, and we're going to pick a, kind of want like a mid-tone yellow. We're going to choose our paper texture, which they have in a different set, so I'll make sure to link both sets, that if you're interested in either the sets for different brushes or different usages, then you can do that. The paper texture is kind of like subtle, so maybe make it a little darker. Sketching, I kind of want to use the one from this set. It is a little dark. But I think we can stick with it for now. Let's do like a quick planning of like the pose of who we're drawing, and then we'll do like a cleanup sketch, and then we'll add color to it. So before we actually start on the sketching portion, I wanted to let you guys know a little bit more about Sakuraco. Sakuraco is a monthly Japanese artisan snack box that supports local Japanese snack makers. Each box comes with 20 traditional, authentic, and artisan Japanese snacks, including Japanese teas and a special Japanese tableware. For the tableware of this month, it is the shonzui flower dish, adorning a beautiful blue and white ceramic look. Super cute dish for small little snacks for sure. Each box comes with a 24-page cultural guide, and I love the fact that it includes information regarding ingredients, allergens, and little tidbits of information revolving around the culture and traditions in Japan. It's also very nice to see that the different areas in Japan kind of being showcased in a way through these little boxes, and they get to show off their specialties. This box's theme was holidays in Hokkaido, which was perfect to have to end the winter holiday season. As always, let's try out a few of the snacks, but most importantly, I love trying out the new tea. So the tea in this box is a roasted rice green tea called Hokkaido Genmaicha, and the roasted rice always adds like a very unique kind of roasted flavor to your typical kind of green tea. For the snacks, I was eyeing the Hokkaido milk manju. I really like manju and kind of like milk flavored sweets. It's just something about the texture and the flavor that I really like, but I think this would actually pair very well with the tea that I'm having, alongside with maybe like milk teas or even coffee. I added the kind of like little corn snacks to the dish so that they wouldn't get everywhere while I was working. I don't think I've had a fried corn snack like this. It's kind of nice and light, but it still has like that staple corn flavor if you're looking for that kind of taste. So if you would like to get a box for yourself or want to give these as a lovely gift to families and friends, who you think that might enjoy these types of snacks, then do check out the link down in the description and get your box today. Thank you again to Sakuraco for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to the sketching portion. So I apologize. I have not completely caught up in Genshin, so I actually don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. So I want to draw Auroron? I don't know how to say his name. It's basically, the reason why I want to draw him is, one, his character design is kind of interesting, and two, I want to draw a character who has more of an intense darker color palette, and his kind of fits the bill. So I want to see how much I can layer up the colors to get to the vibrancy that I want to. So let's go ahead and start with him. I do have a reference of like his official art and the model on my phone so that I can kind of take a look. It's gonna be kind of like a, not like a test run. Well, a little bit of a test run. Think about pose. My mic is moving on me. Spooky. But yeah, but if you guys have been playing like the more recent updates for Genshin Impact, I don't know if it's because I'm busy. I have not been playing it as frequently. So I would like to catch up fully and then really get back into just drawing some of the characters. Can also put his arm more behind him, I guess. I kind of wish I figured out a pose before committing to today's drawing. Also super excited because this week GDQ is going on, so there's gonna be a lot of stuff I can watch while I work on different projects and stuff. It's like one of those days I'm listening to Sad Loop again by Infinite. He does have lashes. Let's see, he does have sharper eyes, so I'd have to be a little careful since I do lean drawing eyes on the larger side. But I'm glad you guys liked the drawing your suggested characters video. I will be making a part 2 and taking your guys' feedback as well and doing it more the real time. Probably be similar to this video. So I do like the kind of like pencil textured brushes when sketching. If I'm adding more like value and all that stuff manually instead of doing like a more painter, or not manually, I guess like building up the value with the same brush rather than like switching brushes and doing painting and stuff. So I love finding like different traditional brushes, like ones that emulate traditional mediums. Because not only that, I think it'll be fun if I can get this down to like a actual procedure that I actually really like, then I will definitely do more sessions like this, or just like doodles and stuff in this style. I move his mouth down. That's the problem, like sometimes if I don't draw the face fully before putting something that's gonna obstruct it, I'm gonna accidentally make the face a little bit too long-ish looking. So I am going to treat this kind of like pencil to a certain extent. The one that I did for Sotheby was a clean sketch. So I spent a lot of time cleaning it up to kind of prep it to be kind of like my line work when I worked on her actual like watercolor piece where I did traditional watercolor. So because I did not meet him in the game quite yet, I actually have no grasp on what his personality is, and I don't want to just assume that he's like a, not as like a tsundere type, but like just the edgy type, I guess. I do kind of want to draw Citlali? Grandma Citlali? Oh, actually, not that I'm remembering. I think there's like a new rumored character in Genshin named Mizuki? Her color palette's so pretty. So whenever she officially comes out, or like we get like some more images of her, I definitely would love to draw her. The guy has air vents. Let's see. Connects like this, kind of over top. We're gonna flap this upwards. I could have also, actually, I think I rendered it too much. I was gonna say we could have used the Gaming piece to do some watercolors on top, but I think I pretty much like fully rendered it with the pencil, so it probably won't work that well. I'm assuming if I read some things that I've seen people post, is the ear that he has, because it's kind of small, I guess it's like a bat ear. And I don't think I should be really comparing this to, I guess, the Pokemon, I guess. it kind of looks like Noivern and Noibat's little ears, I guess, or like their wings, so maybe it's kind of similar-ish. So, and yeah, I probably have to look closely at this design a little bit more, because I don't know if this flap's supposed to look more like a bat wing. So maybe I should open up and boot up my Genshin Impact so we can look in the character archive and like swivel him around so I can see just this hood situation, I guess, and like the back accessories technically. So I'm probably planning to doing... Why is my English so off? I'm planning on doing more like real-time videos, hopefully. Kind of looks more like a bib. Change the shape a little bit. Because I would like to do more work streams. Is that where I left off? Because it would be fun to do some of my chibi stuff that I want to work on for like completing different merch sets. Probably work on them while I talk to you guys. Lower this leg. Did I mention who my favorite Natlan character is? I probably mentioned that like a long time ago since she was like the first one I drew. So Mualani is my favorite. Because I'm very behind. I finally got caught up more in Star Rail though. That one's a little bit easier for me to digest probably because it's more story heavy and like turn-based is a little bit easier for me to manage. Kind of want to shuffle his arm down a little bit. It's a little bit abnormal how high up it is. Cut off, but I can kind of see like the diamond pattern, I guess. Guess I'll just do it like this to kind of simplify our shapes. It does have like a belt. Swing forward. I think maybe I picked the wrong person to draw for this. The amount of like little small detailings that he has for like his design and patterning might be a little bit hard to replicate in watercolor, even if it's digitally. So I might have to actually sketch them out. So many, I was gonna say so many belts, but I think Kinich has more. This way, when we apply our little watercolor washes, I've also forgot that I think the other time I did watercolor wash kind of like demonstration kind of esque drawings on Procreate. I think I've used like a wet one brush, I think from Palo something. It's like linked in my description all the time whenever I use iPad and Procreate, just because I used to use it like a heck of a lot. But then later on I ended up using the old beach brush because there's an artist I really like named Gloomy Home, and they use that to do some of the coloring for their drawings or for their sketches, and I always loved how soft and like beautiful the lighting was, so I occasionally use that brush as well. It would be nice, like, if I was naturally a person who sketched very cleanly to begin with, then I could just go ahead and go right in with doing the coloring portion, but unfortunately I'm not. So this is technically where our hood is. Hopefully it's not too messy. A part of me kind of wish that maybe I did like separate line art. I also just want to bend his hand. This pose looks so awkward. I guess it's okay, it's just a test. This portion, maybe I will drop this so that we can actually see his arm properly. So I'm assuming this actually just connects to the one in the back. So I think we can actually start to think about switching. Yeah, let's see if we can add some washes. So before that, I'm gonna change my lines to multiply. We're gonna alpha lock it. I'm gonna switch it to kind of like a dark brown color. Press fill. It's kind of what it looks like, and hopefully you can kind of see the paper texture with it. So we do have soft watercolor as well, which you can do for like probably some of the darker areas, or like areas that you need more of like a actual solid fill. But for now, we're gonna slowly build up our colors here. I also am going to put the lighting on the upper right, so we're gonna start to really just shade everything in and like block out certain areas so that you can just kind of mess around with your washes and keep things still like pristine and clean. I also want to bleed some of our skin tone into our hair here because his hair is going to be fairly dark, so the skin tone's actually going to show up pretty well in contrast. This is his arm. So kind of same thing. When I do watercolor, I tend to keep things like pretty clean and pristine. But for this, because we're working with digital, I don't mind if there's a lot more like bleeding here and there. So this brush allows me to layer up the more I kind of add more and more layers on top. When I mean more layers, I'm literally going over and over certain areas several times, not like increasing my layers per se. So even though this kind of takes me a while, I do want to incorporate a little bit more like watercolor doodles and stuff just like in my drawings, like on Procreate, either in Clip Studio Paint or whatever drawing program I'm drawing in. It'd just be nice to have a variety of like, not just like my usual sketch pages or all that. So something with a little bit more texture is kind of nice. So to kind of keep it more like airier in a sense, I'm also trying my best not to lose the white of the paper, I guess per se. So like leaving very blatant highlights. Like a reddish pink color. You can kind of see that's like transparent on top. So to intensify the color, either go over several times, or we can use like a different brush as well. Which we can always add more colors like later on after we have other colors established, just in case we want more colors to look like they're bleeding. So I'm using a lot less pressure when I'm approaching areas that I want to kind of like bleed the color in a little bit, or if I don't want like a harsh edge. We're gonna really try to darken this up to like a certain extent that makes it more believable that it reads the color of his hair to be a little bit more accurate. Trying to keep in mind that this is not like actual watercolor, so I do have to be careful of some areas that overlap. It's gonna take me a while to build up the color that I want, because like I mentioned, one of the reasons why I wanted to draw him technically for today's video is because his color palette's a little bit on the darker side and a little bit more of like intense, vibrant colors in a sense, so don't exactly want to lose that either, but I have to be a little bit wary of where I'm placing my colors. Darken up the this area because you can kind of see how dark my color is. So we can still apply a fair amount of layers with just a singular color until we want to do either a color shift, or if I want to go significantly darker, we can. So just in case I don't think I made these dark enough, because technically it's on this side of the head. Okay. Trying to make this look okay. Or at least like, so I won't hate it in the end. I might add a little bit of blue into this. It's looking a little dull. And I'm also running into the territory that's looking a little too purple. So we can do a little bit of a wash of a blue on top. So I'm losing like that airiness, but I kind of want the vibrancy now. I guess if you really wanted to, you could also just go back in with your eraser and like carve out your highlights again. So for this, not only is it supposed to be darker near where the light is supposed to be here, but I kind of want to leave the edges a lot lighter. I probably will draw him again in the future though. But we're just kind of having fun with experimenting. So let those washes kind of melt together a little bit. Maybe it's only when I get it closer to the lighting. Because right now, right off the bat, it just reads as kind of like a gray. And usually like when I'm working with the old beach brush, I love working with some of the darker colors just because it's easier for me to identify where my highlights and my shadows are. Sometimes lighter colors is a little hit or miss for me. Drawing for this, I like the one of Sotheby maybe because the lines were also very clean and crisp with the watercolor. Or me working with like such a, I guess, more darker color palettes throwing me off quite a bit. I also run into these little splotches every so often, but usually when I go over it again, it doesn't really reappear. They're kind of like here and there whenever I start off like a new pass. That or maybe I should have made the washes that I've been doing a little bit more simple so that they're easier to read. But it's still fun to experiment with a few different brushes. I know some people who do more like a digital watercolor also, they leave a little bit more like textured areas or like leaving more like white gaps in their pieces too. I don't know what I want to get out of this per se, besides like experimenting with it and checking whether or not this is the brush that I'm going to use in the future. I want to do more like watercolor stuff, or I will switch back to the old beach brush because I did like that one quite a bit. And I treat that application a little bit differently. I do more like a flat wash and then alpha locking that kind of flat wash and then changing the colors to be a little bit more suited to the color scheme and the lighting. I might spend more time like even afterwards trying to fix it up or embellish it a little bit so that I don't hate it so much. I'm trying to think like what would my favorite character from each of the regions, I guess, in Tibet. So like Mondstadt, Venti, I guess. Zhongli for Liyue. So after that, Inazuma? I think it would be Kokomi, technically. Sumeru. Ooh. Maybe Kave? Fontaine. I think it was New Villette is my favorite. I do like a lot of the male characters because I do kind of have a preference, but I don't know. Sometimes it might be easier just for me to pick like a female and a male favorite instead. I do like the Archons. Gonna add a little bit of this blue. Some other places and let that color kind of bleed through. Natlin, I think Mulan is still my favorite. I don't know if it'll change. It might. But for now, Mulan is my favorite from Natlin. Oh, I guess from Liyue, I like Yanfei a lot. And Xinyan. And Inazuma, I also like Kazuha. The drawing your suggested characters video that I would do another sketch page of the characters, but I'll make them themed. So I'll definitely do one for Genshin because there were still quite a few people mentioning Genshin characters for me to draw. And they were, a lot of them were the ones that like I've already drawn in the past anyways, but it would be nice to like kind of revisit them. Yeah, I think I went a little bit overboard with the shading and the coloring. So I'm gonna go a little bit back to how I did the lighting and changing of some of the colors via alpha locking, because once I alpha lock all of these, it kind of like locks in the texture, so when I put down a color on top, everything kind of remains. So we can actually subtly use this to our advantage if we want to change the lighting a little bit. Because I think that already looks really pretty. I might even knock back or duplicate this layer and put like a screen layer or something on top of it, because the colors where I think I overly layered up our dark purple colors, I guess. I begin to dislike it more and more. So right now I'm kind of like touching up where the highlights are. Give it a little bit more of that warmer touch to our washes. Now this is like something that can be achieved if your washes are a little bit wet. This is like traditionally, and then you can add in like a different color on top and let them bleed into one another. You can kind of get these subtle areas where they kind of like blend and mesh together. I think one artist uses a lot of like teals and like mint turquoise color into a lot of their warmer pieces, so the contrast looks really pretty. Another artist I think I follow uses more of a like a peach color into like darker areas, so this could be like into black, grays, dark blue, dark purples, and they have like a little bit of that granular quality, so the way that it interacts with everything kind of changes. Scrape away at some of our edges again. Orangey color to let it bleed in. I definitely think it helps quite a bit. I might even bleed in more of the blue color we have into some of these areas. Just make it a tad or a touch lighter. Okay, so last but not least, I'm gonna duplicate this. I'm gonna set it to, I do like screen a little bit more. I can tell the difference. I do like it a little bit lighter, but maybe not intense. So let's bring it up to around 60, and I'll use my eraser to erase some of the lightness here so that we can return some of our darker colors and then still have a lot of that light peeping through. Last but not least, I would like to make a new layer. We're gonna use the selection tool. I'm gonna take color fill off, and we're going to select all of these areas around Auroron. So what I'm gonna do after you select everything, we're gonna invert so that we can color basically all in this back area. I actually really like this wash color. Or not wash color, this intensity is actually nice. Maybe I should use more of this. Little like watercolor wash background to him. But I don't want to be too predictable, so we could go some splotches here and there. You can also use the eraser version, so we can kind of get it's like a blooming texture on top with a little bit as if kind of like water gone on top of it, so that we can kind of break up our shapes to not be too similar. All around this, so that we can kind of have like a very subtle mixture of both kind of like our pink color and then our blue color here as well. Put it back in here. Yeah, maybe I should have played with some of the other brushes rather than just like the one latest watercolor pressure one, this one. The soft watercolor and the watercolor transparency are actually very fun to use, so yeah, maybe in the future if I want to play around with more watercolor techniques and stuff digitally, maybe I'll practice a bit more, come back and maybe we can do something like a little mini comic or something with a similar wash style over everything, or maybe I'll just apply the texture. But let's quickly go through a quick time lapse. Entire thing. I feel like I liked the pose at the beginning, but I kind of lost where his arm was and we started to change everything, but it's kind of where we left off. But I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye! I said that, but I actually forgot. Before anyone screams at me, and this, because there's like many things I actually forgot. Yeah, apologies for not adding some of the details that he kind of needs here. But now I think we're kind of done. There's definitely still things I missed, but for the most part, at least that's more of like a defining feature, I guess. Okay, bye.